I think true happiness comes from three separate facets. They're connected: joy, happiness, and fulfillment. Happiness is result reliant. In other words, if I win, I will be happy. If I don't, then I won't. So joy comes from doing something you love, being in the moment, doing something you love and enjoying it. Fulfillment, in my opinion, only comes from two things: growth and contribution.
Hi everybody, I'm your host Morgan Ruiz-Carrera and welcome to Way of Living podcast, where I usually interview amazing women about their success and how they follow their dreams. But in today's episode, it's going to be a little bit different, and I am joined by Alan Lazaros, who is the co-host of the Hyperconscious podcast, and he is going to talk to us about what actually changed his way of living and his expectations on life, how to believe in yourself, and how to find strength to be successful. I really hope you enjoy, and just to let you know, you won't see me on that video because I didn't know how to use this new app that I downloaded to record the interview on Zoom, and sadly I was not on the screen. Well, I could see myself during the interview, but when I saved the video, I wasn't there. So you can hear me, but you won't see me. But I hope you really enjoy it. It's very interesting. I had so many more questions at the end, but we had to cut it short. And please don't forget to subscribe. Hi, Alan.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am absolutely fabulous. Happy to be here.
Oh, thank you for joining me. I'm laughing because it's really funny that I don't know how to use Zoom, so this platform like to record and phone people, and it was a mess. Let's just say it like that.
But we failed forward and we made it happen.
We did, yay! So welcome.
Thank you.
So you're the co-host of the Hyperconscious podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Really cool podcast. I actually listened to it this afternoon, like 3 episodes.
Nice. The latest episode on anxiety?
Yes. Very interesting. Just what I needed today, actually.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, really interesting. So what I would like you to do, and that's what I do usually, is just for you to give us a little introduction about yourself, a bit of your background. Who are you, Alan?
Who am I, Alan? Okay, so I'll try not to be too long-winded on this. So, who am I? I grew up in Uxbridge, Massachusetts, in New England. It's right in between Boston and Providence, for those of you who don't know. And it's a very, very small rural community, sort of in the woods. I grew up on a big pond, small lake. And basically from a very young age, I was no stranger to adversity in the sense that my father passed away when I was 2. So the reason I tell you that is because as we get into this episode, I'll probably end up talking about a quote that I always say, which is your adversity is your advantage, and that when you're in emotional pain, you can either develop a virtue or escape into a vice. And I think that makes the biggest difference over the long term. But basically, we grew up very, very, I'll phrase this correctly, no stranger to adversity. Grew up without a father, but fortunately I have a wonderful mother and a sister who's an older sister. So I kind of had 2 mothers, which was really cool. And they believed in me, and they always put wind into my sails instead of took it out. And I remember actually like brainstorming businesses when I was very young with my friends, and my mom would just listen to us brainstorming about these video game companies we were going to create stuff, and she would just put wind into our sails. And I remember I would be at friends' houses and I would notice them getting kind of like criticized whenever they would have new ideas and stuff. And I realized now in hindsight, looking back, like my mom was always kind of encouraging me to be free and to be confident, to all of that, and to really explore. So fast forward, I go to high school. I did really well in school. One of the reasons why I am here today actually is because I think, you know, for people who, I was naturally good at school. So academics came really easy to me, which was awesome because I was praised for that. And then the more you get praised for it, the more you want to do it. And it's this great snowball effect. So I did really well in school. I think I only got like 1 B+ in English one time, and then never took honors English again.
Oh, wow.
And so I went to basically a college called WPI, which is like a mini MIT. It's a really, really, really amazing technical institution. And I always say that was one of the best decisions I ever made. And I owe that to my mother, because if you rewind, when I was 8 years old, my uncle was a track coach at that school. She drove me past it. She said, Alan, really smart people go there. You should go there one day. So she's always planting these seeds. And I didn't realize it at the time because I'm just a kid. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, thank you, Mom, so much. So I went to that school and I realized really quickly, oh, okay. So I was, the quote unquote smart kid in high school, but everybody's like that here. So how do I flourish in this environment? So that was a whole thing. And then I went into corporate America. So I got my electrical and computer engineering degree. I was an electrical engineer. I worked in marketing. I worked on global product management teams. I was eventually a global product manager for a company called Sensata that used to be Texas Instruments. Then I went into sales. My whole life, so my father was actually in sales, and my whole life I had this one male role model of mine, my best friend's dad. He always said, Alan, you're going to end up in sales. And I'm like, what do you mean? I want to be an engineer. And he's like, trust me, you're going to end up in sales. So he was right. I ended up in sales, inside sales. I started this inside sales team for a company called Cognex that sells industrial automation equipment. And then I got promoted to outside sales, brought a bunch of my friends from WPI with this great referral program. You'll know why I'm telling you all this in a minute. So I think that I was always pretty good at success, and that's really cool. But I don't think I was always good at the fulfillment piece, because, so here's what happened. So I was at the Providence Place Mall with that same friend I referenced. His name's Kiki. I call him Kiki anyways. His name's Keith. And right, it's a Sunday night and we're paying for parking. We just saw a movie. We're not at the bar. We're not doing anything crazy. There's little kids around. We're paying for parking. I get hit in the face from behind and I turn around, and I'll never forget this guy's eyes. Like, this guy was trying to kill me. And you have that fight or flight response. You're just like, okay, what's going on? So I thought in a millisecond, one of two things. Either he thinks I'm in a gang and that I'm someone I'm not. And he kept saying, Kodo in the building. And he's like trying to fight me, right? Or I thought he's crazy. So he either thinks I'm someone I'm not because I'm in Providence and there are gangs in Providence, or he's insane. It turns out it was the second. So fight or flight, I chose flight. I ran away. My best friend at the time did not do either. He just stayed and got beaten up. This really messed with me because not only he had a weapon, so someone pulled the fire alarm and he got taken by the cops. Okay. And he told the cops that we were trying to kill him. And he was having a schizophrenic episode. Apparently he didn't take his medication or something like that. So he basically told the cops that we were trying to kill him. So he actually was trying to defend himself, but he would have killed us if he could have. So this really shook a snow globe for me, especially because I ran away and then I didn't defend my friend. So after that, I started hitting the weights. I really started hitting the weights because when something like that happens, you try to make meaning of it. And I just said to myself, I'm never running again. Like, I'm going to be able to defend myself. I'm going to get strong. Fast forward 6 months. So that shook the snow globe for me and made me kind of question things and the way I was living. At the time, I was 160 pounds, very skinny, not really taking my health seriously. Now I gained a lot of weight. I gained 60 pounds in 6 months lifting weights. And I was working for a company called Cognex in outside sales. Now I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin, and we're driving to TGI Fridays. It's a really dark night, and it's in the middle of the winter. The road stayed right. I was supposed to yield. I thought it stayed left, and I didn't. And I ended up on the wrong side of the road. I was looking down at the GPS, and I looked up, and there's this lift-kitted truck with the brightest lights I'd ever seen, like right in front of us. And I remember thinking in that moment, like, oh my God, this is it. Now, fortunately, I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat, German engineering. It was a steel trap. I used to call it a tank. It was like a really heavy car, and all the airbags went off. So we were not totally fine. So he hurt his knees. I hurt my face on the airbag, but we were okay, which was everything. Now, for him, he's 17 years old, my little cousin. So he's like tweeting about it. Like, he still has that invincibility complex, right? I'm 26 at the time, and I'm going, oh my God, like what if that was it? And so, like I referenced already, my father passed away when I was 2 in a car accident. Now, he was 28. So for me, this really messed with me. And if you combine that with being jumped 6 months prior, I was just like, oh my God, like, I had all this regret, right? Like, did I live a life true to myself? Like, did I courageously chase my dreams? Like, did I love openly and fiercely, right? These questions come in and I didn't like my answers, to be completely honest. And the thing is I had all the results that I thought I wanted, right? Like I had more than enough money. I was making, nearly 200 grand, less than that, but like a lot. I did really well. I had the beautiful girlfriend. I had all the friends. Cognex the company motto is work hard, play hard. So I had the social life and the party life. And, I definitely, like, after college had a drinking problem too. So it's all of that. And all of this was coming up all at once. And so I just had this real moment of like, oh my God, like I have to change my life. Like I have to fix my life because I'm not really happy. And if that was it, I would not be proud of the man that I've become. So after that, I attribute 3 things to my shift. 1, have you ever heard of Bronnie Ware?
No.
Okay, so she wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. I have a flashcard in my pocket right now with all 5 regrets. So I actually got to interview her on the podcast recently, which was so cool because this is like 5 years later. But the number 1 regret of the dying, she basically worked in hospice and she took care of the terminally ill. And she realized that her job wasn't just to take care of them, but to listen. And she kept hearing them say, I wish, I wish, I wish. Like, so she created this book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying because she noticed these common patterns of regret, right? The same feelings that I was having after that car accident. Number 1 regret of the dying is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. Yeah. And so that's exactly how I felt. So after that, I went, okay, I am done doing what I'm supposed to do. And I'm going to do exactly what is in my own heart. And I also was introduced to Tony Robbins' TED Talk. Do you know who Tony Robbins is?
Yes, I've heard about him. Yeah.
So his TED Talk is one of my favorite speeches ever. And it just gets you to question your own motivation. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? And between those 2 things and then meeting my fitness coach, Nate Smithson, who is a dear friend of mine now and still my coach to this day, which is crazy. Though I just started getting deep into personal development. And that's when I went all in on my dreams. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a model. I'm going to be a men's physique fitness athlete. I'm going to be a peak performance coach. I'm going to be a speaker. Like, I'm going to change the world. I always had huge dreams, always. But I was working for a company that's literally, it's automation, right? So the better I did, the less jobs there are for people that with less education, right? You go into a Panera now, at least in America, and there's kiosks instead of, people behind the desk. So we have a less educated population growing exponentially and a automation growing exponentially. So I saw this huge problem and I think it was eating away at me. So now what I want to do is empower people to create their own jobs and to really become valuable in the marketplace and develop themselves so that they can get, a job.
Yeah.
That's a very long-winded version of my story.
That's
I hope
crazy.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's very interesting. You're a very good storyteller.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I hope so.
So crazy things happen just before you were 26. And so why did you get into podcasting? Because that was not really in your list, like being a public speaker, model, and in fitness, but podcasting wasn't on your list.
So podcasting to me is, I bottled them into 3 main buckets. So I often ask my clients all the time, if a genie could pop, if you could rub a lamp and a genie would pop out and you could be the best in the world at any 3 things, what would they be? So for me, I write out on a flashcard every single day. I have one in my pocket right now. I'm the greatest public speaker, podcaster, and educator to ever live. The second one is I'm the greatest natural aesthetic men's physique athlete, male model, and peak performance fitness coach to ever live. And the third is I'm the greatest master of communication, human connection, and positive influence to ever live. The reason I write those out is because the first one is basically speaking. Yeah. So oratory. So whether it's podcasting, speaking on stage, or like a coaching call, that all to me is moving people with my words. So that all falls under the same category. The second one to me is fitness, everything fitness, like health and fitness. Because back then, prior to being jumped, and I really wasn't taking my health seriously. I really wasn't. I was 160 pound, 6'2", very lanky, very frail, and I drank a lot, too much and too often. And so that was another thing. And then the third one to me is leadership, like communication and positive influence is everything. So those are the 3 main things that I want to, be the best at. Not the best. I say the best in the world, but
the best you can.
The best I can be, right? I don't want to be better than anyone else, but I want to be way better than I used to be every day. So that whole concept.
Yeah, and I don't really like this concept of like being the best, because each people are the best at something different. So yeah, even if like two podcasters and public speakers next to each other, like you and someone else,
Right.
maybe he is the best, but you're the best at doing something extra,
Right.
you know? So
we have on the whiteboard over there, we're doing an episode on comparison and how it's a bad thing. Right. I couldn't agree more, because we're both podcasters, right? But you're better than me at something.
Yeah.
And I'm better than, and whoever resonates more with, we have a different, unique thing that only we have.
Absolutely.
And so it's I think there's no nobility in trying to be better than anybody else, but there's all nobility in trying to be better than you used to be.
Yeah.
So that's my thing.
So, you know, well, I thought my audience was mostly females, but actually I just looked at my insights last time, and it was mostly males for some reason. But so my podcast is all about women, as you know, and how to push us to be the best we can, and to motivate us, and to give us courage. And so you're a man.
Yes.
But your audience is mostly women. So
correct.
That's why you're here today. And I would like you to tell us a little bit about like what is the Hyperconscious podcast, and what are the messages you want to spread. I know you just said like, you know, motivation and stuff, but can you just like, tell us a little summary of what you do?
Absolutely. So the Hyperconscious podcast is basically like, at a very high level, it's personal development. So if you look up hyperconscious in the dictionary, it says being acutely aware. I've actually recently started saying, I want to have more hyperconscious moments. So you have like that aha moment of something you didn't realize. That is what I call a hyperconscious moment. Why? Because you became acutely aware of something that you didn't know before. Mm. So we had a guy, his name is Michael Burt, on the podcast a while back, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, decisions are everything, but your decisions can only ever be as good as your understanding. And so to me, I see this, I think the root of every human challenge is either it's apathy or ignorance. In other words, people don't care enough, or they don't know enough, or some combination of both. And so our podcast is trying to get people to either know more so that they care more, or either care more so that they go learn more. And so what I try to do, I have this sort of framework that I use for the human condition. So physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. I think that a lot of times people who are very emotionally driven are usually wonderful, and they're good at community and connection and relationships, and they're warm and they're loving and they're open and they're honest and they're sincere, but sometimes they struggle with some of the signs of success. Mm-hmm. And then I see other people that are more mental, and they're really good at success, but they aren't always doing it at the service of others, and they struggle to connect with others. So I want to take emotional people, and help them develop strategies to help them scale their impact. And I want to take people that are good at success, and like I was, and teach them that you got to do something in your heart. Because I was the guy over here who was really good at success, but who wasn't doing it at the service of others, congruent with his core values. So that's what the Hyperconscious podcast is all about, is basically becoming acutely aware of yourself, of the world, and how you can impact the world in a positive way.
But how do you do it? How do you teach people that?
So I think having the results that they think they want will get the attention. So I'll tell you a quick story. So I was asked to come into a middle school. Now this is a lower class middle school that struggles with funding. So it breaks my heart even just thinking about the story, because like this school doesn't have the equipment that they need to really help these students. And we say equal opportunity in this country, but we have a long way to go. So one of the reasons why I love podcasters, people like you, is this is free a lot of times for people that need to be inspired, motivated, and educated. So I admire and respect what you do so very much, which is why I'm here. But so I'm in this middle school, and this principal is taking me around the school. Now, one of the reasons why I care so much about fitness is because if you embody what other people think they want, now you have their attention, and they might pay attention to the other stuff. And so I'm touring the school, and it's in the middle of the day, And she said, Alan, she just stopped me in the middle of the hallway. She said, Alan, look around. And I did. Every single child in this middle school was looking at me. And she said, look at the power you have here. Like, so if you have someone's attention because of the way I look, like, this is going to sound corny, but it is what it is. Like, I literally try to look like Captain America because that's what kids value.
You do.
Okay, I'm glad it's working. But that's what little kids and that's what they think they want, right? They think they want muscles. It's not about the muscles. It's about who I had to become as a man in order to create that. So, what's a good example of this? If you have, I always say this. So, do you know who Tom Brady is?
Yes.
Okay, I love Tom Brady. Okay, so I'm giving a speech at a high school to a group of high school athletes on conscious leadership. I've since started calling it hyper-conscious leadership. But anyways, the first slide is him holding his 6th Super Bowl trophy. Okay. And I said, we're in New England. Who here loves Tom Brady? And I raise my hand. Everyone's hand goes up, like shoots up, right? And then the next slide is his book, The TB12 Method, How to Sustain a Lifetime of Peak Performance. I said, who here has read Tom Brady's book? Not a single hand goes up. And I say, see, you and I both love Tom Brady, but we love him for different reasons. And it's the reason that matters. I love his habits. I love who he is as a man and a leader. You guys love him because of football. I don't even care about football. And I said, I want you to care about Tom Brady's habits more than you care about him. Because I basically said this, how to sustain a lifetime of peak performance. Like, aren't you curious? And so I know all my friends, they take shots to Tom Brady and stuff like that. And it's like, guys, he doesn't even drink. And if he almost barely. So I think why you're learning from someone is as important as who you're learning from. And if we can have the results that people think they want, now they'll pay attention to the deeper, more important things.
Wow. That's very good. I love that.
Thank you. I'm trying. And I'm glad that you think I look like Captain America. Perfect.
It's working. I was thinking, I was like, he reminds me of someone, but I don't know who. And, oh my God, yes, I can see
Believe it or not, I swear that was not calculated. I swear.
Yes.
No, I swear it literally wasn't. I'm telling you. I didn't even realize that until that moment. Like, I'm telling you.
Actually, me too. I just saw it. That's funny. So I know you were raised by women, like your sister and your mom. So how does it impact your view on life when you talk to kids?
So one of the interesting things, what I thought was my biggest weakness ended up becoming one of my biggest strengths. Let's unpack this. So I now aspire to be like, I grew up without a strong male role model. I had no consistent, strong male role model in my life. And as a little boy, like, you see other friends with their dads, and they go fishing. And I mean, it's just tough. So fortunately I had 2 moms. My sister always took incredible care of me, and my mom always took incredible care of me. And I think because I grew up without that masculine energy, I think it created a side of me that is more emotionally connected and more intuitive. And, I'm just realizing some of this stuff now because I'm about to be 31 and I'm really transitioning into adulthood here. And I'm starting to notice, like, I'm really thoughtful, I think. And I realize, like, it's because of my mom and my sister. Like, they're so thorough and thoughtful. And like I'll get out of my car, and if I'm at my mom's place, and it's literally like, she'll stop whatever she's doing and she'll go open the door for me. And people have been asking me questions like, I just went on a date a couple days ago that went really well. Best first date I've ever had. And she's like, how are you so thoughtful? And I'm like, honestly, it's my mom. I grew up around women. She's just so thoughtful. So what I once thought was a bad thing is actually becoming the greatest thing. And believe it or not, so I told you 90% of our listeners are women between their 20s and 30s that struggle with courage and confidence, and they don't feel fulfilled in their relationships and in their jobs. So if it sounds like I know a lot, it's only because I'm studying all the time. How can I help these people? And as a fitness coach too, like, I'm trying to understand what the bottlenecks are that are within myself and with others. So to answer your question though, I think not having guidance from a male role model for a very long time was difficult. One of my mentors, he's 69 years old. He's written 20 books, prolific author, just very, very wise. And he said, my favorite part about you is that you had to figure it all out on your own. And so I think there comes with a lack of entitlement with that. And because I had to figure it all out on my own, I really do think that while that was really, really hard for me, I think that has empowered me to really help way more people and connect with people too, because right now I'm perceived as successful, but when I open up about some of the darker, more challenging parts of my past, I think it gets people to believe in themselves, because it's like, if he can go from there and get to where he is, then maybe I can too.
Yeah, I think that's true. But how do you like, my last podcast was actually about me. It's very short, but I just talk about like how I got my journey to confidence and how to believe in yourself. And I'm still working on it. I'm 30, I just turned 30. And every day.
Happy birthday.
Well, that was a few months ago, but thank you.
You said just, so you're welcome.
But sometimes I still think to myself, oh, you need to believe in yourself. You want to do this, believe in yourself. And I think, it's really hard to learn how to do this, because you didn't have any guidance from your father. And I didn't really have any guidance for, having the confidence. I was always like kind of pushed down. Oh, don't be too proud. And I think, we are both kind of on the same level. We are strong-minded, so we know how to get out on our own and grow. But some people, they don't know. They need this guidance. They need to be taught from like a very young age. So how do you actually teach grown-ups how to be confident and how to actually believe in themselves? How do you do it?
Such a good question. Such a good question. So I think it starts with having and embodying what they admire. So for example, like if any listener out there right now doesn't like who I am or what I'm about, they're not going to listen to a word I say. We have this liking and disliking bias. As a matter of fact, it's a whole thing where if I really like someone, I'm going to learn everything from them, even if it's not right. And if I don't like someone, I don't learn anything from them. And so we got to be aware of that. But I see everything in life as a dance between two extremes. You have someone who's overly confident and arrogant.
Yes.
Okay, I've been there. That's my kryptonite. Okay. And you have someone who has self-doubt, and they're always crippled by self-doubt, and they don't have any confidence. Okay. The people over here, we call this the drive to 5. So you have 0s and 10s, and Kevin was on this end and I was on this end. And so as a matter of fact, when we went to high school together, he didn't like me because he thought I was arrogant, and I didn't like him because I thought he was insecure. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And we're just kids. We don't know this. We're just wired this way, right? My mom taught me you can do anything. He didn't think he could do anything, right? When I passed the test, I thought it was because I was smart. When he passed the test, he thought it was because he got lucky. So there's something in that.
I'm Kevin. Okay, so because most of my very good friends are actually like you, very confident, and they know what they can do. And I've always been kind of like the Kevin, I'm lucky I had an A.
Right, exactly. So what if so this is what I've found out. What if you chose in advance to get an A? The thing is ready? I thought I got an A because I'm smart. That's actually not true. He thought he got an A because he got lucky. That's also not true. You know what is true? Effort accumulated over time. So let's say we go give a speech. I always think, I have an optimism bias. I always think it's going to go better than it does. So I get humbled. Okay. He always thinks he's going to suck, and he kills it. And then he gets confident. So action is the cure-all, because it's going to take away the delusion of you're not good enough, or you're not good enough, or you're the best by default. And it's going to drive you to 5. So on this end, you're delusional and think you can just show up and be awesome, which is not true. Or on this side, you think you're the worst, and that's also not true. So to me, if you can take small actions daily, the people who think it's going to go poorly are going to get pleasantly surprised, and they're going to build confidence, which is awesome. The people like me are going to go, oh, wow, like I have work to do. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we call the Drive to 5. And we have a private Facebook group where most people fall on your end. And so we try to get them to believe in themselves. And here's a cool thing. If you're out there right now and you struggle with courage and confidence, I'm telling you, get around someone who's really confident. It will rub off on you. And then you'll start taking actions you normally wouldn't. And then you'll prove to yourself that you're capable.
Yeah.
Most of my clients, I tell them all the time, like, I have this one client. She just got a new job. She just left her old job because she wasn't fulfilled there. And she was so nervous for the interview. And I'm like, I'm telling you, you're going to crush it. You're so much more competent than you are confident. Remember, you always think it's going to go worse than it does. You're going to kill it. She got the job. She killed it. Like, I already knew that, but it's easy for me to say. She needs to believe that. I said, I can believe in you all day, but if you don't believe in you, you're not going to take the actions necessary to actually do it. I always say this, and I don't know if this is going to land, but why would Warren Buffett invest in a stock that he didn't think would grow?
Yeah.
So why would we invest in ourselves if we don't believe our future's bright? I want to get people to believe in themselves and their own brighter future so that they start developing themselves. And then it's unbelievable what can happen.
Yeah, but sometimes you make mistakes and you're kind of being delusional. So how do you know? How do you know, okay, this is just being delusional and I should not invest in this?
To be honest with you, that is, first of all, great question. I'm trying to figure a lot of this out too. I think action is the only way you're going to find out. So, for example, I've done 3 fitness shows in my life, and I tend to be really optimistic. Some people tend to be pessimistic. Again, that's all it is this. Optimists think things are going to go better than they do. Pessimists think things are going to go worse than they do. And we all have one wiring or the other. And for me, I tend to be very optimistic. Now, here's what the science has proved. They've done studies on this. Optimists are far less accurate at predicting outcomes. They always think things are going to go better. Mm-hmm. Pessimists are better at predicting outcomes, but here's the difference. Optimists always try, so they get more lessons and more growth and more learning. And yes, more failure, but failure leads to success. So I always say no one will outfail me. The key to success is being willing to be perceived at first as a massive failure. So how do you know which end you're on? I did 3 fitness shows. My first show, I honestly did very little research and I thought, I'm going to win. I didn't get a posing coach. I prepped myself. I didn't do the work I needed to do. And I came in 5th, which was actually almost last place. Okay. That was me being really optimistic. And therefore I didn't prepare enough. Second show, I went in with real humility. I was actually afraid to lose. So I got a posing coach. I sent my coach every progress picture possible. My diet was on point. Everything was dialed in. Guess what? I get first. I went in thinking I was afraid to lose, and I got first. Third show. Okay, this is a year later. I did 3 in 3 years. Guess what?
Too optimistic.
I reverted to my training, and I went in arrogant again without even knowing it, overly confident, and I got 4th place. So a little better than the first time. But the point is the people who are afraid to lose tend to over-prepare. Mm-hmm. As long as they at least try. That's all that matters. For me, people like me are always going to try, but they need to make sure they prepare enough. And when they do fail, that hit to their ego isn't too harsh on them. Because what I have found is people on my end that are really optimistic, sometimes they get crushed by the truth because they're deluding themselves into thinking they're far more competent than they really are. And here's the thing, you got to detach it from your identity. Like, just because you fail a fitness show doesn't mean you're a failure. Mm-hmm. It means you screwed up one thing. That's fine. We're human. We all screw up. Like, as long as it doesn't hurt. What I've found with people on my end is they like to think the world of themselves subconsciously. And so that feedback of I didn't get first place or whatever is too much for them because this delusion. I have one friend that, and I have empathy for this because I've been arrogant in the past. Like, it's where do you get this confidence from, man? Like, it's like, if you ever, like, he's really not winning in any arena when it comes to like health, wealth, and love, but yet he's very like arrogant. And to me, it's like, that's a dangerous place to be because I always use this analogy and then I'll wrap up the answer to this question. So people on my end of Drive to 5 that are overly confident don't think they need a mentor. People on your end are too scared to get one. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're both wrong. This person desperately needs mentors. They just don't think they need to, right? This person also needs mentors, but just they're afraid. They have to overcome that fear and really learn.
Yeah. Do you think your audience is mostly women because women have less confidence, are less cocky than actually men?
They very much are. As a matter of fact, I think the feminine energy is far better collaborators and leaders for the 21st century. And I'm learning that really quickly. So I think Kevin is on your end of Drive to 5 and struggles with courage and confidence. So they connect with him. But what they need is some of the things that I have. So I think we created a really cool dynamic where they connect with Kevin, but they learn from me. And obviously it's a mix of both. And sometimes, we all struggle with both. Like if Kevin's winning, it's interesting because sometimes he'll have an ego on him. And it's like, he's like, I've never felt this way before. I'm like, dude, okay, so now your challenge is going to be, how do you stay at 5? How do you stay centered,
Yeah. So what's the best advice you give when you do your coaching or when you're speaking in public? What's the best advice you give to people to be successful? And what is actually your view on success, by the way? I really want to know that because I'm sure you have a lot to say about that. and how do you give advice to people, and women especially, because I really feel that we need to be backed up by men, because we have like a strong team of knights, of like feminine knights around the globe, and we're getting stronger and we have a voice now and we're being very loud, and I love that. But if we don't have, sorry to say that, but the most powerful, which are men still in 2019, if we don't have them to push us and be like, yeah, it's okay for you to be loud. Yes, please make more noise. And yes, be a CEO and we're going to be proud of you. If we don't have people like you doing this, I feel like, well, we don't stand a chance in the long run. So how, answer this question.
So I love this. This is a great question. So the first thing is, what is my definition of success? I break it down into, for me, everything's formulas. I'm an engineer. I'm a numbers guy. So for me, it's joy, happiness, and fulfillment. The problem is I remember reading this. John Lennon had a quote where he talks about the story how he was in school and they asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said to the teacher, I want to be happy. And the teacher said, you don't understand the assignment. And he said, no, you don't understand life. Okay, I like that. But I think our definition of happiness is not thorough enough. Okay, I think true happiness comes from 3 separate facets. They're connected. Joy, happiness, and fulfillment. Happiness is result reliant. In other words, if I win, I will be happy. If I don't, then I won't. So happiness could be, okay, I like Oreos. There's an Oreo over there. I eat the Oreo. Now I get a dopamine hit. Now I'm happy. That's pleasure. Okay, so that's only 1/3 of the equation, in my opinion. Joy comes from doing something you love, being in the moment, doing something you love and enjoying it. Fulfillment, in my opinion, only comes from 2 things, growth and contribution. So what if you design your life where you're always doing things you love, not always, but most of the time, and you're winning a lot of the time. So it's like, this is awesome. Result reliant, right?
Yeah.
And you're growing consistently and contributing consistently. Jim Carrey has a great quote that is one of the best in the world. He said, how will you serve the world? What do they need that your gifts can provide? That's all you need to figure out. He says, I can tell you from experience that the greatest currency is your effect on others. And I couldn't agree more with that, because I used to be successful, but I didn't believe in what I was selling.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it at the service of others. I was doing it for a paycheck. And unfortunately in America, that's like very perpetuated. And I'm not trying to hate on America or anything. I love our culture, but it's very like win, win, win. But it's like, wait a minute, what if we're winning at the wrong game? Right? What if we're chasing this money at the expense of fulfillment? So I think some people are really good at fulfillment and doing things they love and enjoying it. And then other people are really good at doing the hard and necessary stuff that's required for success. Now, to answer your other question, okay? Strength and warmth. There's this book called Compelling People. I forget the author right now, but it blew my mind. Strength or strength and warmth. Again, just like the drive to 5. Some people are really good at the warmth part, community, connection, love, empathy, sincerity, right? All of that. Women tend to be really good at that. Okay. And that's where I try to surround myself. Our whole team, our hyperconscious team, is the most incredible women. It's unbelievable. And they balance out my ridiculousness. So, and then on the strength side, you have the self-discipline, structure, order, like brute force. On this side, you have collaboration and love and empathy and sincerity. On this side, you have competition, brute force, get it done. Like, and we all need both. We all need both. So this is what I've learned to do. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I think, is the best at this. I say work ridiculously hard and be strong in private so that you can serve and be loving and warm in public. So for me, when I'm alone, that is when I take out all my masculine energy on discipline and structure. And for me, the weights, like weight room, is everything. But like when I'm in public, like right now, I hope I'm coming off as warm, loving, and sincere. And here's the thing. We're all naturally good at one of them, but we should be developing the other one. And here's the other problem. We attract what, in terms of like our friends and our peer group, we attract people like us. So back when I was an engineer, everybody was really good at the calculating and right. But what I really needed was more warmth and love and empathy and compassion. Now, this is one of the things that I'm most passionate about because I grew up with women. So I think I'm naturally like this, but I was always around this. So now I can kind of bridge the gap. And as a matter of fact, in corporate America for a long time, I was a global product manager, and engineers couldn't communicate well with marketers, and marketers couldn't communicate well with engineers because marketers are trying to get, I worked for a company called iRobot. The marketers are trying to get the consumer to connect emotionally with the product. And the engineers are trying to like make the robot actually work. And one of them is very science and the other one's very like emotion and connection driven. So I've always been able to speak both languages. I just didn't understand it enough to really capitalize. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. It does. Okay. Yeah, we need like both sides need to actually learn how to get both sides, like the warmth and the, what is the other one?
Strength. So if you're out there right now, know thyself. Temet nos que. It's a Latin term for know thyself. Are you, just ask yourself, like let's take an audit. Are you better at being strong and disciplined, or are you better at love and connection? Yeah. Okay. Whichever one you're weaker at, develop the other one. And you know how you do that? You get around people. This is also why I think intimate relationships are where the biggest growth is, because you naturally attract the opposite. Like I went on a date the other night. The person that I'm currently, talking to intimately is the most warm, fun, loving, like it's unbelievable. She's amazing. I tend to be boring and structured and like, very regimented. And so I'm going to rub off on her in the best way, and she's going to rub off on me in the best way. And we're going to be centered. And that's why I think we feel centered when those energies are together.
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually. Because that's true. Like I've always been very good at, when I was in high school, for example, I've always had a couple of friends in each group. So, we always have groups.
Oh yeah.
I've always had friends in every groups, but a little bit of here and there, and no one was the same, and not everyone actually got along because they were all different. But I always, I think I'm quite good at the strength and the warmth balancing. I just need to, and some people listening actually, I might maybe like this. I just need to
grow it.
Yes.
I think whichever one we're expressing more naturally. So physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, like how often, I think spiritual is faith, believing in something that you cannot see yet, right? So having a dream that you can't yet see, and or your faith, right? Like I have mine, I'm sure you have yours. Then you've got emotional. So how often are you expressing your emotions and being vulnerable? This is for me, my bottleneck. Like that's why I like intimate relationships, because it forces me to be vulnerable to stay connected. Mental is strategy. How often do you strategize? This is my strength. I love strategy. Like if you and I want to reverse engineer a goal and the actions that need to be taken to get it, like that is where I live. That is the engineer in me. I say it all the time, reverse engineer the goal. And like, what are the daily actions that we need to get to lead to that? So that's my strength. That comes natural. That always has. how action oriented are you? How quickly can you go from thought to action?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I audit myself, and I audit my clients. And so if you're out there right now, think about it: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Where am I strongest? Okay. Now, where am I weakest? Because the spiritual is visualizing something that doesn't exist yet. The emotional is emotionalizing it. The mental is how to strategize about how to make it real. And then the action part is actually doing it. And to me, that's manifestation. So which one are you doing more naturally? And then which one is the bottleneck for you in making your dreams a reality? And so I'm always trying to help people figure out which one is holding them back. Because honestly, our weakest link is the bottleneck, I think. But we can only work on it if we know of it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're right. I was going to say, actually, because if people have a really low self-esteem, they don't actually believe in themselves. And I know that it happens. Even sometimes, you feel like, oh, you're very powerful and you can do everything, and you keep failing. And then you feel like, oh, okay, I'm actually a loser. No one is a loser. But, that's the feeling some people feel. And it's really hard at that point to find in what are your strengths, what are you good at? It's really hard to find that. So how do you make them find it? I always think it's make lists, but sometimes it's really hard to even put it on a list. I'm good at this or that, because you can't find it. How do they find it?
So if you're on my end of Drive to 5 and you tend to be overly confident, you need to look at the loss. So I always see, so I say this: every rep is a report card. By rep, I mean every action you take is a report card. It's feedback on whether or not you did. So I think people on my end need to look at the F's more than the A's. Mm-hmm. I think people on your end need to look at the A's more than the F's. So I would just give you, any of your listeners, if you're out there right now and you feel like, okay, so for me, it's alcohol. So that is the one place where I felt powerless for a very long time. And that's one way when I can relate. I'm telling you, like, even my energy is probably going to shift just talking about it right now, because I felt so powerless. And to be completely frank, in most of my life, I feel very powerful in a good way. Like, I feel like I can make my dreams a reality. Like, if you asked me, Alan, are you going to be a millionaire? I'd say yes, no question. Now, if you said, Alan, can you never drink again? I would hesitate and say, I'm going to try. I'm 115 days sober right now. But like, to me, that's how I can relate to someone who feels completely powerless, because I felt like for the longest time, I couldn't not drink. And it was like, what the hell, Alan? Like, you can do anything you set your mind to. Like, why can't you win in this arena? And when you're consistently losing in an arena and all you have is failure, it's so hard to figure out what the problem is. So my question, or my challenge to you, if you're in that place in any arena, for me, it was booze. That's my kryptonite. I don't know what yours is. Get around someone who has mastered it. I got into a relationship, and this was the first person who I had ever been in close proximity with that closely, who literally was the complete master and not the slave of drinking. She barely ever drank. And for me, it was never like I could just do one. I don't know if you noticed, but I tend to be a little passionate and excessive. So I don't usually do one of anything, right? So that can be a really good thing as long as it's channeled in the right direction. This person helped me. I call it 3/5. So what are your 5 closest associations? If 3 of them smoke cigarettes, you most likely smoke cigarettes. If 3 of them drink alcohol, you most likely drink alcohol. If 3 of them are really good at success, you're most likely successful. Shift it. Okay. Figure out what you want. For me, I needed to quit drinking. My fitness coach, Nate Smithson, I remember he told me, he's like, I never drank once in 2013. And I remember at the time I was like, not once? Like, oh my God, that's incredible. And that's also why he's in such good shape. And then I dated my ex, Jenny. And I also dated her in high school, but she had complete control over her alcohol. And she even said, I don't like when you drink. So for me, my associations shifted. And now all of a sudden, I slowly but surely became the master and not the slave. And I remember I went over 400 days alcohol free. And now I really do feel like I am in control of this. And so if you're out there right now and you feel like you're powerless, you're not. You've just been maybe in the wrong rooms with the wrong people. And I don't want to say wrong because there's no right or wrong. I don't want you to judge people, but I do want you to understand the implication of the influences in your life. So if you want to quit drinking and you're around people that drink all the time, it's gonna rub off on you. And I think it's naive to think that it won't. So if you aren't confident, get around a couple more really confident people, and I'm telling you, it'll change your life.
So relationships then. So do you advise to cut relationships with people if they have like a wrong impact on you?
Yes.
That's really hard.
It's the hardest. It's as a matter of fact, you just touched on one of my biggest fears. One of my biggest. We actually did an episode. It's funny because it's on the whiteboard right over there. We did an episode on fear chasing, and Kevin and I openly talked about our fears. It's funny because his biggest fear is not being successful and being left behind. And we had an open, vulnerable conversation about that. And my biggest fear is being so successful that I lose love and that I lose the people I love by outgrowing them or whatever. Right. So we created a framework that I think might help your listeners, which is the 5 buckets. Okay. You have the nostalgia bucket, which is old friends and family. So one of my friends, Mark, I grew up with him. I known him since I was 4 years old. Like his son is like my nephew. And it's like, even though we're not blood related, it's like that tight knit thing. Okay. That's the nostalgia bucket. Then you have the maintenance bucket. The maintenance bucket is people that you went to high school with that you care about, but that like you don't hang out with regularly. You probably see them, at the high school reunion or once a year or whatever. Then you have your mentee bucket. Okay. These are people that you can help because you're farther along in the journey that they care about. Now, the only difference between the maintenance bucket and the mentee bucket is that they're in the room for a reason to be helped. So I'll give you an example. Someone in my maintenance bucket is a friend of mine who maybe doesn't care about fitness, so he's not going to want me to talk fitness constantly. Whereas a mentee, if that same person suddenly cared about fitness, they would go from my maintenance bucket to my mentee bucket because now I can talk about my passion and it's beneficial to them and it's now a copacetic relationship. It's a win-win. Then you have the peak performance bucket. This is the growth bucket. These are your peers. So the people you date, the closest associates. So Kevin and I are constantly like trying to get better and we're on the same level for the most part on this journey. And then you have the mentor bucket. This is the wisdom bucket. These people are the people that are 10 or 20 years ahead of you, that are wiser, they're older, they've played this game longer, they understand things you don't. So I always say, don't choose a mentor unless their micro is your desired macro. In other words, their day-to-day life. I'll give you an example. So David Meltzer sponsors our show. He has a podcast called the Playbook Podcast. He coaches us every other week. He's a mentor. He is 50 years old and he's done so much and he's so successful in his day-to-day life as a speaker. He's one of the highest paid speakers in the world. So his day-to-day life is my dream. So who better to learn from, right? So as long as you're balanced, so think of these 5 buckets. If you have too many over here and not enough over here, you're going to lose progress. So imagine the buckets tip this way. If you get another mentor, they tip this way. Now you're making progress towards your dreams. If you feel stuck, it's because your buckets are off. So I, for the longest time, didn't have mentors. Now I have literally I think 5 to 6 that I can call anytime I want that are multimillionaires and also wonderful human beings. And it's like, they help me so much. So now those old associations that used to maybe hold me back don't anymore because I have enough to balance that out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Those are interesting. Yeah. Surround yourself with people that make you grow the right direction. And mentors. I think that's very American to have mentors. Because I think so. Because then in England, because I live in London, and I think we have like a lot of this as well. I hear a lot about mentors. I think it's very American.
Is it?
Yeah, and I think French people should actually learn from this because I think we're very cocky. So, and we want to learn our own way and stay in this French culture. I really like this, surround yourself with mentors, like people who are more successful and they can help you, and it's okay to get help, I really like that.
Mentors will change your life. One thing I do want to say though, remember everyone is an example and a warning, everyone, including me, right? Yeah. Like there are And one of the best questions to ask yourself, by the way, if you want to audit yourself, ask yourself, where am I warning? That's a tough question to answer. So for me, it would be like excessive nature, striving over arriving, like always being focused on your goals, sometimes caring about results more than people. Like I can tell you my warnings, as long as I'm aware of them, now I can actually mitigate them. But I think we want to pretend that we don't want to look at our weaknesses, so it's hard to mitigate them. But what I will say is when you have mentors, be careful to stay true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes,
you can learn from them, but you want to be a student, not a follower.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure everything you do is the result of your own conclusion. And I can't even tell you how many times I left. I was coached yesterday by my Aunt Joanne. She runs this financial firm in New York City, the first woman-founded financial firm in New York City, by the way. You want to talk about empowered women? She is the ultimate. Like literally, I could name some of her clients, and you'd be like, "Oh my God, I know that person." Like A-list actors, it's awesome. As a matter of fact, we were at the beach for my grandparents' 60th anniversary, and Taylor Swift's house was right down the beach, right in Westerly, Rhode Island. And we were on the beach and we were swimming. And I was like, I was joking around. I was like, I would really love to date Taylor Swift one day. And just jokingly, maybe I'll get a song written. But she was literally like, I was like, what, is she going to be a client soon? She's like, honestly, we're working on it. And I'm just like, that's the level she gets to play at. So it's so cool. So she's coaching me monthly. And every single call shakes the snow globe, where I'm like, oh no, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know where this lands yet. So you just got to be okay with that discomfort and then figure out what lands for you. Because I can't even tell you how many times, like, my mentor thought I should do something or should be doing something or should do this a certain way, where I had to go, no, like, I know that this is the way I have to go, even though that might be a good idea from your perspective. So everyone is a warning and an example, all of us, including me. Where are they an example? So my Aunt Joanne, biggest heart ever, unbelievably powerful, empowered woman. She's been on the cover of magazines for that, like ridiculously good networker, huge heart. When it comes to, certain things, it's like she says she's a really bad procrastinator. Like she doesn't prioritize the top leverage point. Like, so for example, if she's supposed to go for a run, suddenly she'll start cleaning the cabinets, right? Even though they don't even need to be cleaned, right? So everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and your ability to absorb their strengths and mitigate their weaknesses is going to empower you. And you have to make it unique to you too. You can't just like become a 2.0 version of someone else.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I think we're going to end it here. It's very, very interesting. I have so many more questions, but we have to stop. I think you, as you said, you're really warm, and I'm really happy that you actually have a platform and you feel comfortable to talk to a lot of people and share your message and help them grow, You're very humble, and I really like that. You'll go far. I hope you'll be a millionaire. You're very humble.
Oh, thank you. You have no idea what that means to me, because that's like, honestly, if Kevin heard you say that, he'd be like, humble.
Yeah, I think
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I think it's because I think who you are, but you also know how to, humble yourself and how to stop, and that's a very good trait to have. You could not have given me a better compliment, because like I said, I have struggled with arrogance in the past, and I've worked really hard to try to mitigate that. So if that's shining through, then that means the world to me. Thank you so much. And I love what you do. These were honestly, this was the best questions I've ever gotten asked. Oh, thank you. That's a very good compliment as well.
I mean it. This was the best podcast I've ever been on. So I really mean that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was really hard to get it, but we did.
Yeah, right. We made it happen. That's all that matters. We made it happen.
We did.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.